Hello, everyone, and welcome to Middle Passage Ceremonies and Court Marker Project August 22 series. Tonight is part 2 of a 3-part series that we're having this month. Middle Passage Ceremonies and Court Markers Project began its work remembering ancestors 11 years ago. And this year, our sessions are focusing on memory work through art. My name is Michelle Dingle, and I'm going to be the moderator for this evening's conversation. And as a lover of the arts in all forms, I am so appreciative to have this opportunity to really dive into the African-American experience through art. Last week, we looked at painting, sculpture, and music. And this week, we have the dynamic duo. That's at least what I'm calling them today. We have Mr. John Sims, visual artist, and Miss Karen Davis Jones, dancer, joining us in discussion. John is a Sarasota, Florida-based conceptual artist, writer, and activist. He creates art and curatorial projects spanning the areas of installation, performance, text, music, film, and large-scale activism, informed by mathematics, design, the politics of white supremacy, sacred symbols, anniversaries, and poetic political text. Currently, he is resident artist at the La Mama Experimental Theater Club in New York City, where he developed the performance piece 2020 Divisions of America, which is part of a 2-decade national art activism project entitled Recoloration Proclamation that explores, reexamines, and remixes Confederate iconography as it relates to the African-American experience. So welcome, John.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks. Now, Karen Davis Jones, a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, has been performing and dancing in the entertainment industry for 30 years. Her experiences include dance, choreography, directing, acting, and singing. Most recently, she served as the associate choreographer for the Arts Center of Coastal Carolina's production of In the Heights. That was this year. She is currently the dance director, dance instructor, and curriculum designer of the Landry High School Dance Department and the owner and artistic director of Studio K Dance Company in New Orleans. She has performed in several musical theater productions, TV, film, and other performing arenas, both nationally and internationally. She has a passion for sharing her gift of dance and providing arts education to the next generation. So please, everyone, join us in welcoming both Karen and John to today's discussion. Now, we have a lot to fit in today, and I'm just going to give you a quick rundown as to how this is going to go this evening. I'm going to be asking questions of each artist individually, and then during our conversation, each person will present samples of their work. After the conversations with both of them, we will then open it up for some Q&A. Now, feel free to use the Q&A function in Zoom throughout the conversation to ask your questions, but we are going to hold on to those questions until we get to the actual Q&A portion. All right, so with that said, let's get started. And Karen, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. We've been chatting a little bit prior, and I told you that I'm like a master stalker when it comes to the people that I'm going to be having conversations with. So I did go to your website, which was the Studio K Dance Company.com. And I'm telling you, I know I gave you an introduction, but that literally just skimmed the surface as to everything that you did. And if I read everything about you, that honestly would have taken up the full 20 minutes that you have to talk. So I'm not going to talk about you. I'm going to have you talk about you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think that's the best way that we should do this. As a dance, okay, let me just say this. You've been doing this for 30 years, and I swear you look what, like 31? I'm just. So I think you've been 1 year old. And so because you've been in this career for so long and you obviously love this, like, how did it get started for you? What was it? Was it something internal that you knew like from the minute you were born, frankly? Or was it something that triggered that inspiration?
I think for me, it was born, but I started at 3 years old, and my mom actually put me in a dance class. I think because she didn't have the opportunity to dance herself. So from that moment at 3, I've never stopped through elementary school, through high school, to college. I can remember when I quite frankly used to cry. I was so nervous to go on stage. And she would literally have to pull me on the stage, kicking and screaming. But once I was out there, I just flourished. And that's the way I've been so far. Like I said, I've danced, I've done NFL dance team with the New Orleans Sensations. I was able to do NBA dance team with the Atlanta Hawks dance team when I moved to Atlanta. I was able to tour with Fusion with Terry Julie Axton and Speech from Arrested Development on a national college tour. I was able to travel abroad to Africa and perform in the Roots Festival with one of my mentors, Ms. Greer Mindy. And it's just been a passion of mine. And so now finally I've been able to match my passion with my profession, and I'm able to give back to the next generation by teaching dance and arts through the high school as well as my own studio. So I have to say, I love it. I eat, drink, and sleep dance. You can ask my husband. He gets poured into a lot of my pieces and things. Yes.
That's really good. And then, like I said, on your website, I noticed that you did a lot of things here in Atlanta. I'm here in Atlanta, and one of the things that we talked about earlier was Kenny Leon and the theater here in Atlanta, and how you worked for the Wiz, I think, at the Kenny Leon theater.
Yes.
And you know, then he brought that to television, right?
Right.
Pretty cool. So you started really young.
Absolutely.
Tell me how it evolved, because I'm sure at 3 years old, you were not thinking about the African-American experience or the stories. So you started somewhere, but going through your years and the love of it, how did it evolve for you?
Well, for me, as an African Americans, we have a rich history of taking things and preserving them for ourselves, but not only doing that, but sharing them and allowing the rich traditions that we have to filter down into the next generations. So as where I am certainly no premier authority on African American dance or the African American diaspora experience, what I have been is a student of dance, learning modern, jazz, African tap, ballet. And I have had the great fortune of being taught by some of the premier instructors and choreographers, from Mr. Otis Salih to Mr. George Faison, Chuck Davis, and of course my mentors who are close, near and dear to my heart, Mr. Padre Harris out of Atlanta. He's a director, producer, choreographer, and my mentor here locally in New Orleans, who actually taught me much of what I know now, Ms. Greer Mindy, and she has been instrumental in that, as well as in Atlanta, Terry Ajile Axton, who also codified a new modern dance technique called the Moja technique in most recent years. So where I may have not been on the forefront, I was there to have these things poured into me. And as a teacher who teaches dance at a high school and an owner of my own studio, I have to quote Lion King. They live in me, so now through my students, they live in you too.
That's great. Now I know that we have a video of some of your dance work. So I think this will be a good time to get to see a little bit of that, and then we'll kind of circle back and talk about that video.
Absolutely.
Wow, very nice. Very, very nice.
Little
Thank you for
choppy, I know.
sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
Yes.
okay, so let's talk about that dance piece, right? How does your art reflect the African American experience? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So when I was first approached with doing a piece for the marker ceremony, which I'm a West Banker, and like I told you, my husband is from Algiers, so it was like, wow, it was something I just could not pass up. And I said, I just felt that this will be a culmination of everything that I've learned, to be prepared for this moment. For as we know, we are, as the word says, we are prepared for such a time as this. And so when the opportunity came, I was like, wow, I cannot not do it. So I received the email, I graciously accepted, and I got 3 of my dance artist colleagues. I said, guys, I need you to come in and do this piece with me so we could come in and collaborate and perform it. So I reflected on my training and all my many opportunities that I've had over the years and created this dance piece. And I entitled it Remembering Peace. It's original music and by my mentor, Padra Harris, and the vocals you hear is a friend of mine, Adrienne Reynolds, who she did all the music on top of it. So the choreography is original. We collaborated. Myself, have to do a shout out to the dancers, Stacy Markey, Noah Guichos, and Emerson. We just came together and it started flowing. So as you can see, it was a little choppy, but in the basket that we presented at the beginning, there were different colors, and the colors aren't revealed to the end. The basket holds our memories, our riches, our royalty, our land, and our blood that was shed through this middle passage process. And the intertwining of the bodies represents the boat in the passage and the struggle between where we go when we're weaving in and out. And at the end of it, the colors are revealed and we're just dancing with the fabric. I actually have the purple, and just embracing all the things that remember that was true and dear to us in our homeland where we were kings. And so that's kind of where it stemmed from. And like I said, I've not been a person to have a lifelong project of the African American diaspora, but this sparked a new and inspired interest in me to definitely bring this piece. And after the pandemic, things slowed down at the high school, but I'm now able to share it with my high school students and spark an interest in them. So it was just wonderful. It was far greater than I ever thought it would be. And Remembering Peace was greatly appreciated, more than I ever expected. And it was just a great opportunity to continue to advance the African culture in dance. And I will never stop advancing my culture and what it means to me to be an African American woman in dance. So I hope I was able to touch on it.
No, I mean, that kind of leads me to my next question, because I feel like you have this passion to tell our story. And why is it so important to you to tell that African American story?
I have to go back to the children that I teach every day. I see how they're so disconnected from history. All we know is his story, not our history. Right. And for the first time this year, we actually have African American studies that will be taught at the high school. So for me, the passion has to go back into ensuring that the next generation is preserved so that they can tell that story to their children, because they are very disconnected, very, very disconnected. So I feel it's my duty as a teacher and a performer to be able to instill that into them, yes.
Okay. So out of all of the work that you've done, whether it's dance, whether it's theater, your art in general, what would be a highlight for you in your career so far? In your passion so far? It doesn't even have to be part of your career. Do something else, but whatever it is, what's your highlight?
I am most excited about having the opportunities to now work on the production and the choreographic and the directing end of it,
Okay.
and be able to be a part of the associate choreographer on In the Heights was an amazing experience for me, which now has led into 2 more opportunities. I think I can speak on one of them. Probably will be brought to be, and it's regional theater. It's going to be in Memphis, but I'll get to do The Color Purple as associate.
Awesome.
It's going to be a revamping of it, and it possibly will go back to New York. So yeah, that's the highlight for me. Is now I'm stepping more out of the performance. I love to perform, don't get me wrong. Any opportunity I get to perform, I am there. But the whole other side of creating, directing, producing, and choreographing is been a highlight. Yeah. And if I have to say one more thing, my other highlight, of course, was during NBA. I have to say NBA dance team was exciting to me, and my trips to Africa. I have to say that getting an opportunity to perform at the Roots Festival in Gambia was really, really an exciting time for me, and getting to go to Senegal. Those international dance opportunities, I have to say, were awesome. Yeah.
Amazing. That's really amazing. So, okay, we talked about your highlights, right? What do you think has been the most impactful of your work? It don't always have to be, highlight isn't necessarily most impactful. So what do you think is your most impactful thing that you've done within your art?
I have to say, on the performance side of it, my trips to Africa. Yes. Dancing with to Kramer Center for Dance and Culture, getting the opportunity to travel to Senegal the first time. It was my first time in the motherland, and I have to say, it just opened my mind. And the International Dance Festival, we got a chance to perform at the International Dance Festival. And when I tell you, the pieces that were brought to the stage on that international level was phenomenal. I mean, it's nothing I had ever experienced before. That for me had just blew my mind. And that was like, it's something different over there. I got to bring it back. Because they think outside the box and create pieces that it was just phenomenal. On outside stages where water and mud and grass was part of the performance pieces, and then they just sweep and mop it up, and the next performer gets up there, and it's just, so that had to be the most impactful for me out of all my career in my life. Those trips to Africa, I have to say, I'm very thankful for that.
You mentioned that's the most impactful for you. And really quickly, do you think that you've had a piece that's impactful to others that tops the list? Just curious.
Yes, I will say that there's a couple of pieces I choreographed for my high school dance company that I teach. And there was 2 pieces. When We Were Kings, if we had time to show it, I would read it, but I'll put it up on the website so people can go to it. When We Were Kings and Spirit by Beyonce, those 2 pieces, when those children performed those pieces in front of that audience and got a standing ovation, they were able to reach their peers. So that piece, and like I said, When We Were Kings speaks about when we were kings in Africa. It's a piece by Brian McKnight. It's a song by Brian McKnight called When We Were Kings. It's for the MLK ceremony that we do every year, remembering Dr. Martin Luther King, right around January, his birthday. So yes.
Oh, that's great. All right. We talked a little bit. This will be my last question for you, because we're on a time schedule here.
No problem.
But you talked about production being your next thing, right? But is there anything else down the line besides those 2 that you might want to talk about before we switch over to John?
Ooh, I'm hoping.
Or is that taking up like all of your time? Because
to be brought into maybe some, I was able to do the short film documentary, Mary on the Move. And I'm hoping that next year will open some doors for a bigger film and TV.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I can't really talk too much about it because I don't want to spill the beans before it actually goes through, but that's coming real soon. And as my mentor said, always be ready to go when it's time to go. It's
Absolutely.
coming soon.
I understand that 100%. You don't have to say anything else, but I'm sure that when the time is right, you're going to be shouting it to the moon. So thank you so much for your time. I want you to hold on for a minute because, you know, there's Q&A later, so don't go anywhere.
Sure.
But I'm going to shift gears right now, and I'm going to go to Mr. John Sims because we got a lot to talk about on his end. And like I said, I've stalked his Facebook page, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let me just say this. I find it quite fascinating that you've managed to put like math and art together with ease. And like normally when you think of those two things, you think about how those functions are dominated with like different parts of your brain, right? Normally you think the left side of your brain is the one with the math and analytical thought and logic and science, right? And then you have the right side of your brain that is more of the creative side. There's artistry and insight and imagery and music awareness, all of that. And I know it's not that simple, and this really isn't a science class. We are going to focus on the African-American experience, but I just wanted to say you've been able to merge them really beautifully with balance. So talk to me about how that happened. Like, what triggered that in your art?
Well, I kind of started off as a math person, like a mathematician. That's my training. And then, you know, and also being very creative about the way I approach math, but also in the way I just approach my life. So it's always been this kind of balance of work and theory, right? This idea of the hand and the mind, and then graduating to a level when you start speaking about the heart. So it becomes a trilogy, it becomes a triad. And so the math art in some ways has informed the way I process the creative landscape. And so coming down to Florida and being from Detroit and seeing all these Confederate flags, I applied my math art brain to creating a 20 years of work to sort of kind of wrestle with this and thinking of it as a problem. Like in math, we have problems, you try to solve them, you try to understand them, put them in context, create solutions. And so bringing some of that energy into, we have this problem, and how do we approach that, mitigate that, confront that. And so I kind of approach things as a math artist. Okay. And so it's more of a mindset, kind of a philosophical, practical approach to tackling whatever is in front of me. And yeah, so that's kind of, but I'm happy to be here and discuss the work, pertaining to the theme of the
Not a lot of your work that we're going to show, but I do want to one more question.
Yes.
Go to your PowerPoint because I know you have a PowerPoint, but before we go to that, I just want to understand what your evolution has been throughout the years that you've been doing this. How did it start? Where is it now? And what does that look like moving forward? I'm just curious.
Well, in some ways, starting off as a student of art and math and traveling the world from Detroit, going to a place like Antioch College where they have this work study program. You spend part of the time in the classroom, part of the time out in the field working. I think that's definitely shaped the way I think about the world. Then I come down to Florida to do a teaching job at Ringling College of Art and Design, where I was charged to create a visual mathematics curriculum for artists. So coming in as an activist and start curating math art shows and start writing about math art and that whole thing. And then also looking at seeing this Confederate flag everywhere. And so I'm like, wow. And started thinking about that and then ended up creating a project focused on that. So my trajectory has led me to a place to create my own independent art space, setting me up to do that art life. That's really what it is. It's like, art life through the lens of a math artist.
Look, I totally understand the culture shock of like a Detroit to Florida, because I grew up north in Baltimore and Massachusetts, and then I moved to Georgia, and I was like, wow, like it's blatant. Everything is just out there, right? And not to say that it's not out there up north, but you just didn't see it the way you see it, you know? So
Right, right,
I get how that could have sparked something,
right.
right? We're gonna go to your PowerPoint now, because I know you have some things that you want to show us.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm gonna go to that. Let me share my screen and we can get rocking and rolling over here. Yeah, here we go. And you guys see my screen. Okay, so let's get rocking. So basically the name of this project is Recoloration Proclamation. And in the late 90s, I don't know, many of you remember that South Carolina was at the center, the epicenter of this whole discussion about the Confederate flag, because the Confederate flag was stationed on the dome. And people were like, yo, this needs to come down. And a lot of the pro-Confederate energy was like, no, this is not coming down. And they have these big demonstrations supporting this Confederate flag, which was so, I can't believe this is America. This is unbelievable that we have people who are willing to not only put it on the state capitol dome with the American flag, but to have the citizenry, the white citizenry primarily, support this. So I was just completely shocked. And then I asked myself the question, how can I, as an artist, as a citizen, as an American descendant of African slaves in this country, confront this particular reality? It's symbolic, but guess what? Higher level living is all about symbols, right? How do we move through these spaces to create the kind of elegance and beauty and support that we want to call life? Right. So I responded by creating the Black, Red, Green Confederate flag. And I ended up taking it to galleries in New York and Gettysburg. And then this is at a KK rally in St. Petersburg here in Florida. So I created my own flag, right? So here I'm mirroring that energy. And then I ended up going to Gettysburg. Now that's the heart of it, the Gettysburg, and I ended up creating a piece called The Proper Way to Hang a Confederate Flag. So we had to escalate the confrontation from this recoloring to now we're gonna sort of take elements of our history as Black folks in terms of lynching, and then we're gonna redirect that to something that you might be able to understand. So part of the project is to get the wider white community to understand emotionally what the problem is, because cognitively you know what that is, but you don't move until we have emotional engines driving the conversation, i.e. death, critical loss of liberty. Now people want to feel some kind of way. Now we're going to make something happen. So it ended up going there. The the Confederate veterans, Sons of Confederate Veterans, they wanted to shut the city down. They the boycott. It became this big thing, and I ended up actually it was supposed to be the gallows outdoors. It got pushed indoors, and I was very upset about it. And then I ended up boycotting my own exhibition in Gettysburg, which is another important part of the African American weapons. Like, how do we protest? How do we push back? How do we average part liberty, part enslavement? Like, being in that middle space is very difficult. Like, you know, what do? Do I like let them shrink my show and show up? Or do I pull everything and then nothing shows up? So how do we negotiate that? And I think the arts provide ways to do that. Our spiritualism provide ways to get in that. It's the middle spaces, which is always mucky. So I ended up in 2015 organizing a 13-state Confederate flag funeral. Each of the flag stars that are in the flag, the Confederate flag, is connected to a state. So, okay, we're gonna call those states out, and we're gonna do a Confederate flag funeral in your spot on Memorial Day 2015, which is the 150th anniversary of the end of the Civil War, and we're gonna do it all at the same time. So I organized all the posters and the Facebook pages, and I organized this big thing. This is 2015, and this was the way to kind of make me feel better about being so disrespected in Gettysburg, right? We're gonna bury this flag, let's do it. Then what happened, 3 weeks after that Memorial Day, the Charleston 9 murders happened. Remember that? Then there was this big discussion about how do we take the flag down off the dome in South Carolina. And that critical loss, now we want to move because we're feeling some kind of way. That sounds like a hook to an R&B song, right? Like, it's like we got to feel some kind of way, now we got to move. And so I organized a 50-state Confederate flag burning. Now we got 50, Facebook pages. We're organizing burnings across all of America. And it ended up, and I've been doing it every year since on Memorial Day.
Amazing.
Right? So this idea of creating rituals, repetitive rituals to keep us in reflection and memory of the issues that are before us and how we need to move forward. So this is in Detroit. And so here I organized a burning there, and which was very, very, very successful. And I've been doing this all over the country. The most recent one was in Austin, Texas. So just recently, in 2020, we had all kinds of drama going on. So I organized this tour called Down South Dixie. So I had like a little show. I did the Burning Berry in Houston for Memorial Day. Tampa, I had a group show there where I showed some of the Confederate flag work. In Richmond at the Virginia Museum of Fine Art, they were showcasing this incredible show speaking to African-American experience in the context of the kind of material culture coming out of the American South. And for that, I took my Afro-Dixie remixes, which is the song done in 13 different Black musical genres, like jazz, Magic Dixie is jazz, blues, hip hop, gospel, the whole thing. And that was installed as a sound installation at a Confederate chapel right there, right basically across the way from the national headquarters of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And then Columbia, I have a special feeling for Columbus, South Carolina, the capital. This is where it all got started for me. I got invited to go there to do a show just last year, 2021, May. And I did this incredible, I think it's an incredible show. And let me show you. This is the title, Afro-Dixia, A Righteous Confiscation. Right, this idea, we taking back some stuff now, right? It's not just like recoloring, we gotta take back, we gotta start the reparative process. And so this was one of the first main pieces. This was not just, remember at Gettysburg, I just hung one little flag. Now we're doing all 5 of them, because there's 5 different versions. So I'm gonna escalate. So that's part of the practice, is you do your thing, you get pushed back, now you come back even more, deeper, more expansive. And I think this is part of it. And so with this particular show, you'll see I recolored all the flags that are being hanged right here, right? Black, red, and green. And these are the urns that for those of when we're gonna burn them and cremate them. And then over to the right is the world's largest Afro-Confederate flag. Now, while I'm in this space, right? This is an artist in residency right across the hall from this gallery. I have a space where I'm staying there for like a month or so, more than a month, to work on the show. And in the middle of the night, the cops show up.
Wow.
In my space. And it made national news. And it was very guns drawn. Apparently the building, now somebody left the door open, but somehow they end up in my studio space, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, no coincidence that I'm hanging Confederate flags across the hallway. Like, this is just not, like, so I was inches away from being that other statistics.
Wow.
This is very, very serious. So again, like I said, the strategy is you get pushed, you got to come back even. So with this, I organized all the many of the social justice activists there in South Carolina, in Columbia, and we organized a rally against the Confederate state of mind. We're going to do this on Emmanuel 9. And part of that is I was able to get my flag on the steps of the state capitol, which is more than 20 years ago, we had the red, white, blue Confederate flag there, and that flag on the capitol. So to come back full circle. Now, I took the cops rolling up in my space to motivate this, but the point is we take anything necessary to move the discussion in the right direction. And so to have this out, but you know, it felt really good. Now, during the same time, you know, after the George Floyd murders, we had this push to deal with some of the plantation spaces and the Confederate monuments and memorials. And so I wrote an op-ed piece for the Tampa Bay Times called "The Change is Coming for Confederate Iconography." So here, right in Sarasota, blocks away from my studio, is this marker for Judy P. Benjamin, who was the Secretary of the Confederacy, and who came down running from Union officers who had a warrant for his arrest, right? And he's running. Everybody else, like Jefferson Davis and General Lee, they're staying behind. They're taking responsibility. But this guy's going to run. He comes to Florida, he comes to Sarasota, where I'm at, and this is where he leaves to go to the Bahamas, goes to England, goes to France. And so, like, we needed to take this marker down. So that was completely taken down. But the thing is, this character, part of his hideout, he was hiding out in a plantation just a couple towns over. And that plantation now is turned into a state park, and it's a memorial to him. Now, can you believe it? It's so my tax dollars in it, and it's managed by the Florida Environmental Protection Agency.
Wow.
And we believe this. This is unbelievable.
Wow.
So with this, I started a petition to get the name changed, but also there's a change. There's certain things on the Florida statutes that are still there that shouldn't be there. Like, for one, there's a statute that says prohibitive to desecrate the Confederate flag. Can you believe it? That is on the law books here in Florida. And the reason why I know, because I had a show in 2007 in Tallahassee, and the Sons of Confederate Veterans tried to use that law to stop me from doing my proper way to hang a Confederate flag installation in downtown Tallahassee. So this is a petition that I want to share with folks. I think Nick you could just Google the link, John Sims Confederate petition. We could drop that link in the comments area. I want people to sign that up and help promote that. And then I wrote another op-ed piece after visiting this plantation and thinking about what would this plantation look like if we reimagine it. Because I've already recolored the flag, hang the flag, burn the flag. Like, we've done all the flag stuff. Okay, now we're going to move beyond that. Now we're going to get into the spaces. We're coming for the places and spaces now, right? Because it's my view that we need to confiscate all of the slave plantations and put them into a national trust under the guardianship of the African-American cultural experience. So that, because so many of these places is where our ancestors have moved through and where the records are connected to. You follow what I'm saying? And so we need to start taking back those spaces. So this is part of my take back, is reimagining as a freedom memorial.
Wow.
And on that, you see a black obelisk, and then you see the black, red, green flag. We got a use for that. And then here are all the names of the folks that were enslaved in that space. So what we want to do now is show you part of the video animation that I created that will walk you through this space with one of the tracks from the Afro-Dixie listening session, Afro-Dixie remixes. Which is and we're gonna play, which is kind of like a.
Definitely want to see that. Just as an FYI, we're running out of time a little bit, so I'm going to get the video in, and then right after this video, I think we're going to go straight to Q&A. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Great.
So I think Nick is going to set up with the video.
Childish visions as a 40-pounder. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. I wish I was in Dixie. Hooray, hooray. In Dixieland I'll take my stand to live and die in
Isaac
Dixie.
Williams, James
Away,
Washington, Dennis
away,
Tyler, Louisa Tyler,
away down
Polly
south
Tyler,
in Dixie.
Jim Tyler,
Away,
Cynthia Tyler,
away,
Charlotte Tyler,
away
Justina
down south
Tyler,
in Dixie.
Cyrus Tyler, William Tyler,
Space was
Edmund Thornton,
as
Littleton Tazewell, John Short, Adeline Short, Jeremiah Short, Stephen Short, Peter Short, Hillard Ross, Susan Robertson, Jesse Robinson, Nancy Roan, Sally Roan, Washington Roan, Francis Roan, Charles Roan, Jack Roan, Russell Roan, and as an apology to them and their descendants, is dedicated to the legacy of the seismic catastrophe of American slavery. This space marks a method of commerce, ownership, and inhumanity that will forever haunt the spirit of a free America. This space has been reclaimed to mark a place of possible transformative healing, where the enslaved becomes free, the shamed becomes washed, and faith is restored in the universal sovereignty of human rights.
Wow, I wish we could see the whole video. Is there a place where that whole video can be seen for everyone?
Yeah, I think if you Google John Sims Freedom Memorial, it should direct you to the right link.
Okay. I mean, wow. I mean, so powerful, so powerful. This time goes by pretty fast, and we can talk forever. So John, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
You have to pause here, but John and Karen, thanks again for a great conversation. Now I want to get to the questions that we have. So we're going to go ahead and open up Q&A. Please make sure that you use the Q&A function in the Zoom to submit your questions. There's a button that you can click on to start asking some questions. I know that I saw a question actually in the chat feature as well. Try not to put them in chat because it's kind of hard for us to keep track of them that way with so much other stuff going on in the chat feature. By the way, lots of comments in the chat about loving the dance, loving the videos, loving your PowerPoint presentation, how powerful it is. But there's one question that says, is there a connection between sports and dance for young people?
Absolutely. It's funny that they asked the question because right now in my dance class, I have 3 football players that are taking my dance as an elective class. Yes. And so what I find with the athletes, it increases their flexibility, their agility in places that they didn't even know had it. So if I have to trick them, sort of, for lack of a better word, into realizing that your football exercises are all the stretches that we do in dance. So it has a direct correlation, and they tend to do better when they get on the field, to be honest. Yes.
Wow. Okay, thanks. We've got a couple of questions already in the Q&A. One of them is from Cortland Gilliam, who, by the way, I believe we're speaking to next week. And he said, what is the importance of sight in your respective work? I'm sure that is for Mr. John Sims and for Karen. You probably both answer that question.
Okay, what's the question again? I'm sorry.
What is the importance of sight, S-I-T-E, in your respective work?
Yeah, very, very much important. Like going to Gettysburg, going to Columbia, South Carolina, very site specific. Timing is everything. Location is everything. I mean, you want to go right to the target, and that's kind of how I approach the work. Yeah. Okay,
and Karen, what about you as well?
For me, in particular, the marker, the port marker piece, the site was already set. So that's actually where the installation took place. So they wanted to create the piece around where the slaves actually were brought in over. And it was a beautiful sunny day, and it was just the levee was there and the river was on the side. So it just all came together for that particular site in that piece. So it kind of worked out. We just kind of had to dance on the asphalt, but it was still, we managed to get through that part of it.
Okay. A question from Gwendolyn Simmons said, where is the plantation? She missed that.
Oh, it's in Ellington, Florida. which is right near Tampa, south of St. Petersburg. Yes, Ellington, Gamble Plantation.
All right. I have another question from Ms. Shalisa Moore. Can Karen Jones tell us more about the part of New Orleans where she performed that beautiful piece and the connection that it had on African American? So it's a two-parter.
Okay, so it was actually performed in Algiers, old Algiers, right outside over the levee near the courthouse. I think it was right by the courthouse, as a matter of fact. And the second part of the question was, I missed the part. What was the second part of the question?
It said, and the connection that it had on African American.
Okay, so the connection part was the whole Middle Passage, how we came from Africa to the Americas and landed, and connecting our heart and soul into the land at which we made. Basically, the backs of America's built on our backs. So yeah, the connection is there, and the pieces of the fabric connected everything together for me. Yes.
Okay. I have one question. This is more for Nick and the crew, that the links are kind of long. So will someone please send the link to the attendees? Now, just do you all have any websites that you all want to promote or have people go to? I know Karen.
John Sims Projects, people can go to. That's my website.
Say that one more time, John.
John Sims Projects. I'm putting it in the chat.
Yep.
My name, projects.com. Yeah.
Okay. And Karen, you have the studiokdancecompany.com, right?
Yes, and I'll be adding some more things to the website right now, for sure. Definitely go there, come visit me at the studio, hit me up if you need choreography, all of that. And I'm hoping to connect with John. We talked previously the other day, and I'm hoping to be able to create some movement with the plantation. So we'll be connecting, hopefully, John.
Yeah, of course. Let's do it. I'm
excited about that. He was very inspirational to me, and I'm just humbled to be a part of the whole panel.
Oh, no.
From the beginning to end. This is great. This is just super great. I'm inspired.
But I think the theme is very important. This idea about still being able to confront the aftermath of the Middle Passage. It's a gigantic cultural project that is going to take many generations. And so I think this is an incredible call to duty for us as African Americans, descendant of African slaves in this country, which is part of our citizenship, is to contribute to this multi-generational, widening cultural into the future project. And it's a lot, we're on the shoulders of so many greats and so many unforgotten folks, but there's got to be folks on our shoulders too. So there's lots of work to be done. And I consider it a privilege, give a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, to be able to contribute, to help contribute and help define what it means to be human.
Yes.
A couple more questions coming in. One of them, any math and art project suggestions for middle school studio art?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm working on a math art exhibition that'll be traveling soon. And part of that, I will be addressing curricular issues. That'll be a part of the show. Every Pi Day, I do a big thing. I'm going to be doing a Pi Day in Austin. So you're going to hear about that. I've created some Pi murals that I'm going to start installing in different Black cities around the country. So you're going to hear more about that. But I think we're on the, coming from out of the 80s, growing up in the 80s, is like, this whole Afro nerd thing is beginning to like move more mainstream through like Afrofuturism and Black folks in tech and all that. And so we're moving into the space where, hey, being a nerd is cool. Right?
Absolutely.
Doing math is cool, like doing science and art and connected, that's cool. And I think we could create work and a culture that can rival what's happening in hip hop and rival our musical tradition. And I think this is an important opportunity again to be able to not only say what it means to be African American in this particular like context, but also what does it mean to be human with our particular history. So I'm really excited about that element, to be able to say, hey, we can hit the left brain elements, you know, and then hit the right elements, and then have a sense of what freedom can be.
Yeah. John, do me a favor, scoot back a little bit or adjust your computer because your face is getting cut off.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Everybody wants to see.
Oh, good.
All right, I've got one last question. I'm going to get this in because we only have 5 minutes left.
Right.
And I do need to close out.
Close it up. Right.
This last question for you. There are so many sites where America needs to be recolored.
Right.
What's next?
What's next?
What's next?
Well, you know, like I'm going after these plantations. I think we need to really get to deal with these spaces, you know, going from flags now to spaces, you know, monuments and markers. But now we need to, you know, these spaces where people are getting married and doing all this stuff. No, these are some spaces where some of our people have been enslaved, where there's been acts of crimes against humanity. We need to come to terms with that. And I think that's the hard work. And I think that's part of our reparation project, is to take back this land and make that land part of our cultural experience, and the equity of our experience. And yeah, so I like to see that. So I'm going to do whatever I can do to help contribute to that.
Okay. All right. Well, look.
And I want to thank Karen, who did an incredible job with her dance work. And thank you, the moderator, Michelle.
Oh, look, I got a couple of minutes. I got to wrap this up. But thank you for sharing your thoughts today, both of you. You have been amazing. Of course, you guys have opened our minds to lots of different things, including how you've incorporated African ancestry into your art and how you continue to think about that African American experience through your art. Yeah. The Middle Passage Ceremonies and Port Markers Project also thanks everyone who has come into this and has joined us today to listen to you two talk about your art. I say this in every session, but I know we still have questions either in the queue or it's still in people's minds and they haven't gotten it out yet. But we can't answer all the questions that come in most of the time. So if we did not get to your questions, or if you have additional questions, or you just want some general information about both of these artists, please contact the Middle Passage Ceremonies and Port Markers Project at middlepassagemarkers@gmail.com, and your questions will be answered then. Thank you to the board, and thanks again to all who donated and volunteered. Your donations and your time are the reasons why we can keep doing programs like this. Nick Huster, thank you again for your expertise in putting this program together. Nick makes the magic happen. I know he helped John today, helped Karen, helps me, so thank you. And again, my name is Michelle Dingle. I hope that you come back next week for the third installment of this series. Next Tuesday, August 30th at 7 p.m., we are going to have Cortland Gilliam, who will bring the art of spoken word. And we will also have Samuel Dinkins III, who will bring the art of drums into our conversation.
Right.
So to support this research and promotion and sharing of the history of our transatlantic ancestors, there are many ways to donate. You can donate through PayPal or Network for Good. Those links will be on our website, middlepassageproject.org. You can mail your donation to Middle Passage Ceremonies and Port Markers Project. That's P.O. Box 3071, and that's in Jacksonville, Florida, 32206. And I say this every single time. If you're like me who likes to shop and we use Amazon, you can donate through the Amazon Smile Foundation. Amazon Smile is a program that donates a percentage of your eligible Amazon purchases to the charity of your choice. So all you have to do is go to amazon.smile.com, link up the Middle Passage Ceremonies and Port Markers Project as your charity, and then continue to shop like you normally do, and they'll get a portion of what you bought. Thank you again, John and Karen. 2 seconds before we officially end this call. Do you all have any last words?
I would like to just say that life is not a marathon, but a relay, and it matters how well you pass the baton to the next generation. And I, for one, will not drop that baton or allow my students to do so when it comes to the African culture. So I'm so glad that I'm humbled to be here. I'm appreciative. I had a great time. And John, I look forward to talking to you soon. And thanks again.
Right. John, what about you?
Well, I want to thank you, Michelle and Karen, for, being, allowing me to be a part of this,
Absolutely.
this testimony, right? As we testify and push the work forward. I want to invite people to follow me on my work. You can hit me up on Instagram at John Sims Projects, S on the end, or Facebook or wherever. And the work continues, and I want to invite people to be a part of the work.
All right. Thank you guys both. Everyone, please have a great evening.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye.